That's what $350 billion buys you. In the English countryside, hidden behind iron gates and ancient trees, sits a French château that shouldn't exist. Renaissance towers rising from Buckinghamshire soil. Formal gardens that belong in Versailles. Rooms filled with furniture once owned by Marie Antoinette. Inside, the largest private art collection in Britain. Thousands of pieces, paintings, porcelain, tapestries, enamels, objects worth hundreds of millions. Beautiful, yes, but beauty is just camouflage. Behind the French facade is a darker story. A Jewish banking dynasty that financed wars and controlled governments. A man who built a palace to escape the fact that money couldn't buy acceptance. And a family so powerful that 5 brothers, operating from 5 cities, could move markets with a letter. Then taxes, 2 world wars, a fortune so vast it seemed immortal, destroyed in 2 generations. An estate the family couldn't afford to keep, handed over to the government because the cost of inheriting it would bankrupt even a Rothschild. Can you buy legitimacy with beauty? And what happens when the power that built palaces crumbles under policies designed to destroy dynasties? Here's the real question. How did the Rothschilds build an invisible empire that controlled Europe for a century? And why did Waddesdon Manor, their monument to acceptance, become the symbol of their decline? If you're drawn to stories about power, wealth that shapes nations, and the estates built by families who controlled far more than we were ever meant to see, please like and subscribe. Your support makes these investigations possible. Thank you for being here. Let's begin in a place no one expected an empire to start, a Jewish ghetto in Frankfurt. February 23, 1744. A boy is born in the Frankfurt Judengasse, the Jewish ghetto. His name is Mayor Amschel Rothschild. The Frankfurt Judengasse isn't just poor, it's a prison. Jewish families are confined to a single street. Gates lock at night. On Sundays and Christian holidays, Jews cannot leave. They cannot own land outside the ghetto. They cannot enter most professions. The street is narrow, filthy, overcrowded. Families live stacked in buildings too small for the population. Disease spreads easily. Violence from non-Jewish Frankfurt residents is common. But Mayor's father, Amschel Moses Rothschild, has found a way to survive: money lending and currency exchange. Christians are forbidden by church law from charging interest on loans. Jews face no such restriction. So Jewish moneylenders serve a need, providing capital to merchants, nobles, even governments. It's precarious work. Profits are modest, respect is non-existent, but it's survival. 1755. Mayor is 11 when his father dies. His mother dies shortly after. Orphaned, Mayor is sent to Hanover to apprentice with the Oppenheimer banking family, court Jews who handle finances for German nobility. For 5 years, Mayor learns not just banking, but something more valuable: how power actually works. Nobles need money constantly to fund wars, maintain estates, pay armies, but they despise the people who lend it to them. Court Jews exist in a strange position, essential but resented, wealthy but vulnerable. Mayor sees that financial power is real power, but only if you're indispensable. 1760s. Mayor returns to Frankfurt, age 16. He starts small, dealing in rare coins and antiques, selling to collectors. He's patient, methodical. He builds relationships with minor nobility, offering them not just coins, but information, discretion, and services they can't get elsewhere. 1769. Mayor achieves a breakthrough. He becomes court agent to Prince Wilhelm of Hanau, one of the wealthiest German princes. Wilhelm has a fortune built on a distasteful business, renting German soldiers to the British, who need troops to fight in America during the Revolutionary War. It's essentially mercenary work, profitable but morally questionable. Wilhelm needs someone to manage the money discreetly. Mayer volunteers. Over the next 20 years, Mayer proves indispensable. He moves money across borders. He invests Wilhelm's profits. He never asks uncomfortable questions. Wilhelm's fortune grows. Mayer takes a percentage. But more importantly, Mayer gains access. Through Wilhelm, he meets other German nobles, government officials, military leaders. 1770, Mayer marries Gudel Schnapper. They will have 10 children. 5 sons survive to adulthood. Amschel Mayer Rothschild, 1773, Salomon Mayer Rothschild, 1774, Nathan Mayer Rothschild, 1777, Karl Mayer Rothschild, 1788, and James Mayer Rothschild, 1792. These 5 boys will change the world. By 1800, Mayer is wealthy, for a Jewish ghetto Jew. But wealth in Frankfurt means little. He's still confined to the Judengasse, still subject to discriminatory laws, still an outsider. Mayer sees the future. Europe is fragmenting into war. Napoleon is rising. Governments will need money to fight. Whoever finances the wars will control Europe. But one banker in Frankfurt can't do it alone. Mayer's strategy: send his sons to the financial capitals of Europe, not as tourists, as permanent representatives. Each son will establish a Rothschild bank in his city. The assignments: Amschel Mayer Rothschild stays in Frankfurt, family headquarters. Salomon Mayer Rothschild goes to Vienna, Austrian Empire. Nathan Mayer Rothschild goes to London, British Empire. Karl Mayer Rothschild goes to Naples, Kingdom of Naples, Italian states. James Mayer Rothschild goes to Paris, France. 5 sons, 5 capitals, 5 banks. The Rothschild logo becomes 5 arrows, one for each brother. Why this is revolutionary? Before the Rothschilds, banks were local. If you needed money in Paris, you went to a Parisian bank. If you needed money in London, you went to a London bank. But what if you're a government fighting a war across Europe? You need to move money from London to Vienna to Paris, quickly, securely. The Rothschilds can do this. No one else can. Their private courier network moves information and funds faster than any government. They use coded letters, trusted messengers, even carrier pigeons. By 1810, the Rothschild network is operational, and Europe is about to tear itself apart. 1803. The Napoleonic Wars begin in earnest. Napoleon controls France. Britain opposes him. Austria, Prussia, Russia, everyone is fighting or preparing to fight. Wars cost staggering amounts of money. Armies need uniforms, weapons, food, pay. Governments need loans, immediately in large amounts. The Rothschilds position themselves as the lenders. Here's what makes them uniquely powerful. 1. They'll lend to anyone. Other banks are patriotic. They'll only lend to their own country. The Rothschilds lend to both sides. France needs money to fight Britain. The Paris branch, James, provides loans. Britain needs money to fight France. The London branch, Nathan, provides loans. It doesn't matter who wins. The Rothschilds get repaid either way. 2. They move money invisibly. When the British government needs to send funds to Austria to subsidize Austrian armies fighting Napoleon, they can't just ship gold across warring Europe. The Rothschilds do it for them. Nathan Rothschild in London receives British gold. His brother Salomon in Vienna dispenses equivalent funds to the Austrian government. No gold actually moves, just letters between brothers confirming the transaction. Governments become dependent on this service. 3. They know everything first. The Rothschild courier network is faster than government communications. If a battle happens in Spain, Nathan in London knows the outcome before the British Prime Minister. They trade on this information. June 18, 1815, the Waterloo legend. June 18, 1815, the Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon versus the Duke of Wellington, British, and Prussian forces. If Napoleon wins, the war continues. British government bonds will collapse. If Napoleon loses, the war ends. British bonds will soar. Nathan Mayer Rothschild is in London at the stock exchange. He has agents at Waterloo. The battle rages all day. By evening, the outcome is clear. Napoleon is defeated. A Rothschild courier immediately rides to the coast, crosses the English Channel, reaches Nathan in London. Nathan knows Wellington won. The British government doesn't know yet. Official word won't arrive for another day. Here's where the legend gets murky. Multiple versions exist. Version 1, the legend. Nathan goes to the stock exchange. He sells British bonds heavily, implying he knows Wellington lost. Other traders panic. They sell too. Bond prices collapse. Then Nathan secretly buys massive quantities at bottom prices. When official news arrives, Wellington won, Napoleon defeated, bonds soar. Nathan makes millions in hours. Version 2, possibly true. Nathan learns of Wellington's victory first. He buys bonds immediately before anyone else knows. When official news arrives, bonds soar. Nathan makes a fortune, not through deception, but through information advantage. Version 3, the denial. The Rothschild family has always denied Nathan profited significantly from Waterloo. They claim the story is exaggerated, possibly anti-Semitic propaganda. What's certain? 1. Nathan did know the Waterloo outcome before the British government. 2. The Rothschilds profited enormously from the Napoleonic Wars, whether or not Waterloo specifically. 3. By 1815, the Rothschilds are the wealthiest family in Europe. After Waterloo, the Rothschilds transition from wartime lenders to peacetime power brokers. Their new role, financing governments directly. When a European government needs money to build infrastructure, pay debts, fund projects, they issue bonds, essentially IOUs. Investors buy the bonds, expecting repayment with interest. But how do governments sell bonds? They need intermediaries, banks that will buy the bonds up front, then resell them to investors. The Rothschilds become the premier bond brokers in Europe. Why governments choose Rothschilds? 1. Capital. The Rothschilds have more money than any other bank. 2. Network. Their 5-city presence means they can sell bonds across Europe simultaneously. 3. Discretion. Governments appreciate that Rothschilds don't publicize financial difficulties. Major clients, 1815 to 1850. British government, multiple bond issues financing post-war reconstruction. Austrian Empire, bonds to stabilize finances after Napoleonic Wars. Papal states, loans to the Vatican. Kingdom of Naples, development loans. Brazil, Portugal, and Spain, various loans and bonds. By 1825, the Rothschilds handle more government bond issues than all other banks combined. The Rothschild wealth at peak in 1850. Estimating the Rothschilds' wealth is difficult. They're private, secretive. But historians estimate that by 1850, the combined Rothschild fortune is approximately $25 to $50 billion, $1850. Adjusted for inflation and relative wealth, this is roughly $350 to $500 billion today. They are the wealthiest family in human history, wealthier than any king, wealthier than any nation's treasury, but their power is invisible. Unlike kings, the Rothschilds don't wear crowns. Unlike nobles, they don't have armies. Their power is financial. They can crash a government's credit with a letter. This makes them simultaneously indispensable and resented. Anti-Semitism and the Rothschild conspiracy. The Rothschilds' wealth and influence breed conspiracy theories. The accusations? The Rothschilds control all European governments. They manipulate wars for profit. They're part of a Jewish conspiracy to dominate the world. Some of these claims are exaggerated or false. The Rothschilds don't control governments, they lend to them. Governments make their own decisions, often ignoring Rothschild advice. But some claims have kernels of truth. The Rothschilds did profit from wars by lending to both sides. They did have advance information, their courier network. They did influence policy. Governments consulted them on financial matters. The problem is the layer of anti-Semitism coating every criticism. Legitimate concerns about concentrated financial power get twisted into Jewish bankers control the world. The Rothschilds can't win. If they're successful, they're accused of sinister manipulation. If they're philanthropic, they're accused of buying influence. Being wealthy, Jewish, and powerful makes them targets. And in 1848, that targeting becomes dangerous. 1848. Revolutions erupt across Europe. France, Austria, Prussia, Italy. Ordinary people rise against monarchies, demanding democracy, rights, economic reform. The Rothschilds are terrified. Revolutionary movements often target the wealthy, and the Rothschilds, despite being Jewish outsiders, are seen as part of the oppressive system. In Paris, the Rothschild Bank is threatened by mobs. James Rothschild flees temporarily. In Vienna, Salomon's bank is ransacked. In Frankfurt, the family house, now a mansion but still in the former ghetto area, is attacked. For a few months in 1848, it looks like the Rothschild empire might collapse. Then the revolutions fail. Conservative governments regain control. Order is restored. The Rothschilds survive, but they learn a lesson. Wealth without acceptance is vulnerable. No matter how rich they are, they're outsiders. One revolution and everything is at risk. This shapes the next generation's obsession. Prove legitimacy, gain acceptance, build monuments that aristocracy cannot ignore. Enter Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild. December 15, 1839. Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild is born in Paris. He's part of the French branch, son of Anselm von Rothschild, who runs the Paris Bank after James. Ferdinand grows up in unimaginable wealth, palaces, servants, art, the finest education. But he's still an outsider. Why? 1, he's Jewish. French aristocracy is Catholic. Doesn't matter how wealthy you are, if you're Jewish, you're not one of them. 2, he's nouveau riche. The Rothschilds made their money in 2 generations. Old aristocracy has titles going back centuries. They look down on new money. 3, he's a banker's son. Lending money is seen as ungentlemanly. Landed gentry despise bankers, even wealthy ones. Ferdinand feels this rejection acutely. He attends the best schools. He speaks perfect French, English, German. He's cultured, educated, refined. But when he attends aristocratic gatherings, he feels the invisible walls. Polite smiles, surface courtesy, but never true acceptance. Ferdinand decides, I will prove I belong. June 8, 1865. Ferdinand marries his cousin, Evelina de Rothschild, daughter of Lionel de Rothschild, head of the London branch. Marrying within the family is common among Rothschilds, keeps the fortune consolidated, maintains control. But Ferdinand and Evelina genuinely love each other. Letters between them, preserved in archives, show affection, humor, shared interests in art and literature. For a brief moment, Ferdinand is happy. September 4, 1866. Evelina goes into labor with their first child. Labor is difficult. Hours pass. Something is wrong. The child is stillborn. Evelina dies shortly after. complications from childbirth. She is 26 years old. They were married 16 months. Ferdinand is devastated. He retreats from society. He's 27 years old, widowed, childless. He never remarries. For the rest of his life, 32 more years, Ferdinand will remain single. Friends and family urge him to marry again, produce heirs, continue the line. He refuses. No one will replace Evelina. Instead, Ferdinand pours his grief into two obsessions: art collecting and building. 1874. Ferdinand inherits a portion of the family fortune. His father, Anselm, has died. He's now independently wealthy, worth millions, roughly $300 to $400 million in today's terms. He could live anywhere: Paris, Vienna, London. He chooses England. Why? 1. British aristocracy is slightly more accepting than French, slightly. Britain has a history of integrating wealthy Jews if they convert or at least assimilate culturally. 2. London Rothschilds are established. His uncle Lionel is a member of Parliament, first Jewish MP in British history. The family has influence. 3. Ferdinand wants to start fresh. Paris reminds him of Evelina. Vienna is too formal. London offers possibilities. But Ferdinand doesn't want to live in London itself. He wants countryside estate, proof of aristocratic legitimacy. British aristocracy isn't just about money, it's about land, estates, legacy. Ferdinand decides, I will buy land. I will build an estate so magnificent that aristocracy will have to acknowledge me. He finds property in Buckinghamshire, Waddesdon. 1874. Ferdinand buys Waddesdon Estate, approximately 600 acres in Buckinghamshire, about 50 miles northwest of London. Purchase price, approximately £250,000, roughly $40 million today, though land values make exact comparisons difficult. The property is bare. There's an old farmhouse, some tenant cottages, hills, trees, farmland. No mansion, no gardens, nothing grand. Ferdinand plans to change that. His vision: build a French Renaissance château, transplant Loire Valley architecture to England, not just a house, a palace, and fill it with art, the finest 18th century French art collection in Britain. Why French Renaissance specifically? 1. Personal connection. Ferdinand was raised in France. French culture is his culture. 2. Aristocratic legitimacy. 18th century French aristocracy, Louis XIV, Louis XV, and Marie Antoinette, represents ultimate refinement, taste, elegance. 3. No British comparison. French style is distinct. Ferdinand hires Gabriel Hippolyte d'Estaillères, a Frenchman who specializes in Renaissance-style buildings. Instructions: build me a chateau worthy of Versailles. Spare no expense. I want perfection. 1874. Construction begins. Immediately, problems arise. Problem 1. The hill is too steep. Waddesdon sits on a hill, which offers great views, but makes construction difficult. Horse-drawn carts can't pull heavy materials up the slope. Solution: Ferdinand installs a steam tramway, a small railway system powered by steam engines to haul stone, timber, and materials up the hill. Cost: £20,000 extra, roughly $3 million today. Ferdinand doesn't hesitate. Problem 2. The hill is bare. The property has few mature trees. A grand estate needs established gardens, forests. Solution: Ferdinand transplants fully grown trees, oak, beech, chestnut, from other estates. Hundreds of mature trees, each requiring special equipment to move. Cost: £30,000 plus, roughly $5 million today. The site is surreal. Massive trees, decades old, being moved on wagons pulled by teams of horses up Ferdinand's steam tramway. Problem 3. Water supply. The hilltop has no natural water source. The château will need plumbing, bathrooms, kitchens, fountains. Solution: Ferdinand digs wells, installs pumps, builds a reservoir system. Cost: £15,000 plus, roughly $2.5 million today. The château itself. Exterior: French Renaissance style, steep roofs, dormer windows, ornate stonework. Built from Bath stone, high-quality limestone. Towers and turrets, Loire Valley influence. Formal terraces, overlooking countryside. Interior: 45 bedrooms for family, guests, and servants. Grand staircase, marble, Renaissance details. Drawing rooms, multiple, decorated in Louis XV and Louis XVI styles. Billiards room, smoking room, gentleman's retreat. Library: though Ferdinand isn't primarily interested in books, his passion is visual art. Dining room, seats 40-plus guests. Modern amenities, cutting edge for 1870s. Central heating, coal-fired boilers. Indoor plumbing, bathrooms throughout. Gas lighting, later converted to electric. Waddesdon is one of the first English estates to have electric lights. Hydraulic elevators for moving between floors. Ferdinand hires French landscape architect Elie Lannet to create formal gardens. Features: parterre, formal flower beds in geometric patterns, French style. Fountain, elaborate, imported from Italy. Aviary, exotic birds. Ferdinand loves collecting rare species. Statuary, Renaissance sculptures scattered throughout grounds. Total construction time, 9 years, 1874 to 1883. Total cost, $250,000 to £300,000, roughly $40 to $50 million today. This is Ferdinand's life's work. Summer 1883. Waddesdon Manor is complete. Ferdinand moves in. But he doesn't move in alone. He moves in with thousands of art objects. Ferdinand's art collecting obsession. Starting in the 1870s, Ferdinand became an obsessive art collector, not casually, not as an investment, as an emotional need. Why did Ferdinand collect so obsessively? Theory 1. Filling the void left by Evelina. After Evelina died, Ferdinand had no spouse, no children. Art became his family. Objects don't die. They don't leave. They're permanent. Theory 2. Proving legitimacy. Owning aristocratic objects equals claiming aristocratic status. If Ferdinand owns Marie Antoinette's furniture, he's connected to her legacy. Theory 3. Objects don't reject. People rejected Ferdinand for being Jewish, nouveau, riche. Art doesn't reject. If you pay, it's yours. Likely all 3 reasons. What Ferdinand collected: 18th century French decorative arts. Furniture, pieces owned by Marie Antoinette, desks, chairs, cabinets. Furniture commissioned by Louis XV and Louis XVI. Works by master cabinet makers, Riesener, Weisweiler, Carlin. Sieve porcelain, thousands of pieces, vases, plates, decorative objects, many bearing royal marks. Paintings, Gainsborough portraits, Reynolds portraits, French 18th century artists, Watteau, Boucher. Tapestries, Beauvais tapestries, French workshops, depicting mythological and pastoral scenes. Object d'art, Limoges enamels, snuff boxes, gold, jeweled, clocks, ornate, mechanical, miniatures. By 1883, Ferdinand owns the largest private collection of 18th century French art in Britain, possibly the largest in the world outside France. Why this collection matters. Ferdinand isn't just buying art randomly, he's reconstructing French aristocracy in England. Every room at Waddesdon looks like it belongs in Versailles or a Loire Valley château. Visitors stepping into Waddesdon would feel they've left England and entered 18th century France. Ferdinand is saying, I may be Jewish, I may be Rothschild, but I have taste equal to any king. 1883 to 1898. For 15 years, Waddesdon becomes the center of British high society. Ferdinand hosts constantly. Weekend house parties, dozens of guests, aristocrats, politicians, artists, writers. Why do they come? 1. The luxury. Waddesdon offers accommodations better than most aristocratic estates. Modern plumbing, central heating, gourmet food. Ferdinand hires French chefs. Imported wines. 2. The art. Visitors want to see Ferdinand's collection. It's legendary. 3. Ferdinand is charming. Despite his outsider status, Ferdinand is an excellent host, witty, cultured, attentive. 4. Royal approval. Edward VII, then Prince of Wales, later king, visits Waddesdon multiple times. If the future king visits, aristocracy follows. The political influence. Waddesdon isn't just a social venue, it's a political venue. Ferdinand hosts secret meetings between British politicians and foreign dignitaries. Why at Waddesdon instead of London? 1. Privacy. Countryside estate equals no journalists, no public scrutiny. 2. Neutrality. Waddesdon isn't government property. Discussions feel informal, off the record. 3. Rothschild financial power. Politicians value Rothschild input on economic policy. Documented meetings at Waddesdon include discussions on British colonial policy. Ferdinand advises on financing expansion. Negotiations between British government and European powers. Ferdinand facilitates. Financial consultations. How to fund wars, infrastructure. Ferdinand never holds official government position, but he influences policy from the shadows, exactly how Rothschilds have always operated. Why Ferdinand never remarries. Throughout these 15 years, friends and family pressure Ferdinand to remarry. He's wealthy, connected, cultured. Many women would accept. He refuses every suggestion. Why? Some historians suggest Ferdinand is gay or asexual. Evidence is circumstantial, never remarries, lives alone except for servants, no known romantic relationships with women after Evelina. But Victorian era makes determining sexuality difficult. Absence of heterosexual relationships doesn't confirm homosexuality. Alternative explanation, Ferdinand genuinely loved Evelina and grief made remarriage impossible. What's certain, Ferdinand dedicates his life to Waddesdon and his art collection. They become his legacy. No children, no spouse, just objects. While Ferdinand thrives at Waddesdon, the broader Rothschild empire faces challenges. 1. New competition. American banks, Morgan, Rockefeller, are rising. They offer governments alternatives to Rothschild financing. 2. Nationalism. European governments increasingly prefer financing from domestic banks rather than international Jewish ones. 3. Anti-Semitism intensifies. The Dreyfus Affair, France, 1894 and 1906, inflames anti-Jewish sentiment across Europe. The Rothschilds, as prominent Jews, face increased hostility. 4. Changing economy. Industrial revolution shifts wealth from finance to industry, railroads, steel, oil. The Rothschilds remain wealthy, but relatively less dominant. By 1898, the Rothschilds are still one of the wealthiest families in the world, but their peak has passed, and Ferdinand, the man who tried to buy acceptance with beauty, is about to die. December 17, 1898, Baron Ferdinand of Rothschild dies at Waddesdon Manor. Cause of death? Heart attack. Age? 58. He dies alone. No wife, no children, just servants. His final years were spent perfecting Waddesdon, adding to his collection, hosting guests. He never found the acceptance he sought. Aristocracy came to Waddesdon. They marveled at the art. They enjoyed the luxury. But they never saw Ferdinand as one of them. To them, he was always the Rothschild, wealthy, cultured, but ultimately an outsider. Ferdinand knew this, and it haunted him. Ferdinand's will. Ferdinand leaves Waddesdon and his art collection to his sister Alice de Rothschild. Why Alice? She's unmarried, like Ferdinand. She appreciates art and culture. She's the only person Ferdinand trusts to preserve Waddesdon as he created it. Alice accepts the inheritance, but she inherits more than a house. She inherits a burden. December 1898, Alice de Rothschild inherits Waddesdon Manor. She's 51 years old, unmarried, and already living at Waddesdon. She'd been helping Ferdinand manage the estate for years. Alice loves Waddesdon. She understands Ferdinand's vision. She promises herself, "I will preserve everything exactly as Ferdinand left it." And for 24 years, she tries. Alice, the perfectionist custodian. Alice is even more obsessive than Ferdinand. Her rules for Waddesdon? 1. Nothing changes. Every room remains exactly as Ferdinand arranged it. Furniture doesn't move. Art doesn't get rearranged. If a servant moves a chair slightly while cleaning, Alice notices. She corrects it. 2. Standards are absolute. Alice inspects the house daily. White glove inspections, literally. She runs her gloved hand along surfaces, checking for dust. Servants are terrified of her. 3. Visitors must appreciate properly. When guests tour Waddesdon, Alice accompanies them. She explains each piece of art, each room's history. If someone seems bored or unappreciative, they're never invited again. Alice is protecting Ferdinand's legacy, but she's also isolated. Like Ferdinand, Alice never married. She has no children. Waddesdon consumes her life, and the world outside Waddesdon is changing in dangerous ways. While Alice maintains Waddesdon in frozen perfection, the Rothschild Empire faces mounting challenges. 1. Anti-Semitism intensifies across Europe. France, the Dreyfus Affair, 1894 to 1906, inflames anti-Jewish sentiment across Europe. The Rothschilds, as prominent Jews, face increased hostility. Germany, rising nationalism includes anti-Semitic rhetoric. German Rothschilds face pressure. Russia, pogroms, violent attacks on Jewish communities drive Jewish refugees westward. The Rothschilds fund refugee assistance, which makes them targets of anti-immigrant sentiment. New financial powers emerge. United States, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, and American banks challenge Rothschild dominance in international finance. Germany, Deutsche Bank, and other German institutions compete for government business. The Rothschilds remain wealthy, but they're no longer the only option. Governments grow suspicious. The Rothschilds' international network, once an advantage, now looks suspicious. Governments ask, where is the Rothschilds' loyalty? To Britain, France, Austria, or just to themselves? This question will become deadly in 1914. August 1914, World War I begins. The sides? Allies, Britain, France, Russia, later joined by Italy, United States. Central powers? Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire. The Rothschilds are on both sides. London Rothschilds, British citizens, support Britain. Paris Rothschilds, French citizens, support France. Vienna Rothschilds, Austrian citizens, support Austria-Hungary. Frankfurt Rothschilds, German citizens, support Germany. For a century, this strategy worked. Finance everyone, profit regardless of outcome. But World War I is different. This isn't a limited war over territory. This is total war. Entire nations mobilized, millions dead, economies shattered. Loyalty is no longer flexible. The Frankfurt branch, destroyed. Germany loses World War I, 1918. The aftermath is catastrophic for German Rothschilds. 1. Hyperinflation, 1921 to 1923. The German mark collapses. Savings become worthless overnight. The Frankfurt Rothschilds, who held significant assets in German marks, lose vast wealth. 2. Anti-Semitic backlash. Germans blame Jews for Germany's defeat, even though German Jews served loyally in the military. The Rothschilds, as prominent Jews and international financiers, are accused of betraying Germany. 3. Weimar instability. Political chaos makes business impossible. The Frankfurt Bank closes. By 1925, the Frankfurt Rothschild branch, the original headquarters founded by Marie Amschel, is effectively extinct. One of the 5 arrows is broken. The Vienna branch, crippled. Austria-Hungary loses WWII. The empire disintegrates. The Vienna Rothschilds face 1. Territorial fragmentation. Austria-Hungary splits into multiple countries, Austria, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, etc. The Vienna Rothschilds' investments, factories, mines, railroads, are suddenly in different countries with different governments. 2. Communist threats. Post-war Austria nearly goes communist. The Rothschilds, as capitalists, are targets. 3. Asset seizures. New governments seize Rothschilds' properties, sometimes legally, taxation, sometimes illegally, confiscation. The Vienna branch survives, but barely. Its wealth and influence are gutted. 2 of the 5 arrows are broken. The London and Paris branches survive, but diminished. Britain and France win WWII. The London and Paris Rothschilds avoid destruction, but they're weakened. 1. War costs. Both governments borrowed heavily to finance the war. The Rothschilds profited from loans, but not as much as in previous wars. Why? Governments now have alternatives. American banks, J.P. Morgan especially, provided massive financing. The Rothschilds aren't the only game anymore. 2. Taxes rise dramatically. To pay war debts, Britain and France raise taxes, especially on the wealthy. Income taxes, inheritance taxes, luxury taxes. The Rothschilds can afford these, but it erodes their wealth over time. 3. Public hostility. Post-war populations resent the wealthy, especially financiers who profited while soldiers died. The Rothschilds keep a lower profile, less ostentatious, more cautious. The London and Paris branches remain powerful, but the era of unchallenged dominance is over. While the Rothschild empire crumbles across Europe, what happens at Waddesdon? Alice tries to maintain normalcy, but it's impossible. Staff shortages. Young male servants enlist or are conscripted. Alice struggles to find replacements. Gardens become overgrown, not enough gardeners. Maintenance slips. Rationing. Britain implements food rationing. Even the wealthy face restrictions. Alice's elaborate dinners become impossible. No imported luxuries, limited meat, sugar scarce. Fear. German Zeppelins bomb England, early aerial warfare. Waddesdon is countryside, relatively safe, but Alice fears, what if Germany wins? What happens to a wealthy Jewish family with German cousins? Guilt. Alice's nephews serve in the British military. Some are wounded, one dies. She wonders, is Waddesdon, this monument to luxury, obscene while men are dying in trenches? Alice continues, but the joy is gone. Waddesdon feels like a mausoleum. Ferdinand is dead. The world Ferdinand built is dying. November 11, 1918, WWII ends. Armistice signed. Casualties? 10 million soldiers dead. 7 million civilians dead. European economies devastated. For the Rothschilds, the war's end doesn't mean recovery, it means reckoning. What they've lost? Frankfurt and Vienna branches, effectively destroyed. Political influence, governments no longer depend on Rothschild financing. Public goodwill, anti-Semitism is worse than before the war. Unified family, the 5 branches are fractured. Some family members barely speak to each other, fought on opposite sides. The 5 arrows are broken. What remains? London and Paris branches, still wealthy but diminished. Waddesdon Manor, still standing, but Alice is aging. And something new is rising. Progressive taxation designed to destroy dynasties. 1920s Britain, The government faces crushing war debt. Solution? Tax the wealthy. Inheritance taxes rise dramatically. 1914, pre-war, top rate was 20%. 1919, post-war, top rate 40%. 1925, top rate 50%. What this means? When a wealthy person dies, the government takes half the estate before heirs inherit. For families like the Rothschilds, this is catastrophic. The Rothschilds' fortune isn't cash, it's estates, art, businesses. When the owner dies, heirs must pay 50% of the estate's value in cash within months. To raise cash, they must sell assets. Sell estates, forced sales equals lower prices. Sell art, flooding the market equals lower prices. Liquidate businesses, often at a loss. Each generation, the fortune shrinks by half. This is intentional. British government and French and others explicitly want to break up large estates and dynastic fortunes. The Rothschilds are prime targets. May 3, 1922. Alice de Rothschild dies at Waddesdon Manor. Age 74. Cause, natural causes, heart failure. She never married, no children. In her will, she leaves Waddesdon to her nephew, James de Rothschild, son of her brother Edmund. Estate value, Waddesdon plus contents plus other assets, approximately £2 million, roughly $200 million today. Inheritance tax bill, 40% rate in 1922, £800,000, roughly $80 million today. Problem? James doesn't have £800,000 in cash. He must sell assets to pay the tax. What James sells? Option 1, sell Waddesdon. No, James refuses. Waddesdon is the family legacy, Ferdinand's monument, Alice's life's work. Option 2, sell the art collection. Partially, James sells some pieces, lesser items, duplicates, but he keeps the masterpieces, Marie Antoinette furniture, best Sevres porcelain, major paintings. Option 3, sell other properties. Yes, the Rothschild family owns multiple estates. James sells several to raise cash. James manages to pay the inheritance tax, but it's painful. The estate is diminished, and James knows, when I die, this happens again. At this rate, the family will lose Waddesdon within 2 generations. James de Rothschild is 44 years old when he inherits Waddesdon. He's married to Dorothy Pinto, non-Rothschild but Jewish. They have one daughter, Dolly. James loves Waddesdon, but he faces impossible challenges. Challenge 1, operating costs. Annual costs to maintain Waddesdon in 1920s to 1930s. Staff salaries, gardeners, housekeepers, security, cooks, £30,000 per year. Maintenance, roof repairs, plumbing, heating, £10,000 per year. Grounds upkeep, 600 acres of gardens, £15,000 per year. Utilities, heating 45 bedrooms, £5,000 per year. Total, £60,000, roughly $6 million today. James's income from investments? Declining. Great Depression, 1929 to 1939. He's spending more than he earns. Challenge 2, the Great Depression. October 1929, stock market crashes, Great Depression begins. Impact on the Rothschilds? Investment income collapses. Stocks lose 80+% of value. Art market dies. If James wanted to sell art to raise cash, there are no buyers. Banks struggle. Rothschild banks face losses, bad loans, failing clients. James cuts costs at Waddesdon, reduces staff, fires gardeners, housekeepers, closes parts of the house too expensive to heat, cancels renovations, but costs remain crushing. Challenge 3, rising anti-Semitism. 1930s Europe, fascism rises. Germany, Hitler comes to power, 1933. Nazis target Jews systematically. Austria, annexed by Germany, 1938. Vienna Rothschilds flee or are arrested. France, anti-Semitic movements grow. Britain, more tolerant but still hostile currents. James, as a prominent Jew, feels vulnerable. Waddesdon could be a target either for violence or for government seizure if Britain turns fascist. James considers selling Waddesdon and leaving Britain. But where would he go? Europe is collapsing. America? He decides to stay and hope. September 1st, 1939. Germany invades Poland. World War II begins. September 3rd, 1939. Britain declares war on Germany. James knows what's coming. The British government will requisition large estates for war use. And indeed, in late 1939, the government informs James Waddesdon Manor will be used as a school for evacuated children from London. James has no choice. This isn't a request, it's a mandate. Waddesdon is taken over. Waddesdon during World War II, 1939 to 1945. Hundreds of children move into Waddesdon. Classrooms are set up in Ferdinand's grand drawing rooms. Dormitories fill the bedrooms. The gardens become playgrounds. James and his family move out. They live in a smaller house on the estate. What happens to the art? James moves the most valuable pieces to secure storage, bank vaults in London, secret locations. Less valuable pieces remain at Waddesdon, at risk. Damage occurs. Children are children. They run, play, touch things they shouldn't. Furniture is scratched. Floors are scuffed. Walls are marked. Staff try to protect things, but it's impossible. James is heartbroken. Ferdinand spent £300,000 creating perfection. Alice spent 24 years preserving it. Now it's a school. But James understands this is war. Waddesdon's damage is trivial compared to cities being bombed. Still, it hurts. May 8, 1945. World War II ends in Europe. The children leave Waddesdon. The school closes. James returns to assess the damage. What he finds: structural damage, roof leaks, not maintained during war, plumbing problems, overtaxed by hundreds of users, heating system broken, worn out, interior damage, floors scratched and stained, walls need repainting, furniture damaged, some pieces beyond repair, gardens overgrown, no maintenance for 6 years. Estimated repair cost £200,000, roughly $20 million today. James doesn't have £200,000. He begins repair slowly, using whatever money he can scrape together. But he's 67 years old. He's exhausted. The war took everything. And he knows, when I die, the estate tax will destroy what's left. February 7th, 1957. James de Rothschild dies. Age, 78. Cause, natural causes. In his will, James leaves Waddesdon to his daughter Dolly, Dorothy de Rothschild. Estate value, Waddesdon plus art plus other assets, approximately £4 million, roughly $120 million today. Inheritance tax rate, 1957 Britain, 80%. Yes, 80%. Tax bill, £3.2 million, roughly $95 million today. Dolly doesn't have £3.2 million in cash. Even if she sold everything, art, other properties, investments, she couldn't raise that much quickly enough. British tax law requires payment within 6 months. Dolly faces a choice. Option 1, sell Waddesdon. Who could buy a 45-bedroom château with war damage and $200,000 plus in needed repairs? No one, not at a price that would cover the tax bill. Option 2, sell the art collection. This would raise enough money, but it would strip Waddesdon of everything Ferdinand collected. Waddesdon without its art is just a building. Option 3. Give Waddesdon to the government in lieu of taxes. Britain allows this. Donate property to the National Trust, government-run preservation organization, and the donation counts toward inheritance tax. Dolly chooses option 3. 1957. Waddesdon Manor is transferred to the National Trust. The Rothschilds no longer own Ferdinand's monument. After 74 years, 1883 to 1957, the family loses Waddesdon to taxes. The National Trust takes ownership of Waddesdon with optimism. We'll preserve this national treasure and open it to the public. Within a year, they realize this is a financial disaster. Why Waddesdon nearly bankrupts the National Trust? Problem 1. Maintenance costs are staggering. Annual costs, 1960s, 1970s. Staff, security, groundskeepers, guides, £100,000 per year. Building maintenance, £80,000 per year. Grounds upkeep, £60,000 per year. Heating and utilities, £40,000 per year. Total, £280,000 per year, roughly $8 million today. Problem 2. Revenue is insufficient. The National Trust opens Waddesdon to tourists, 1959. Admission, £1 per person. First-year visitors, 30,000. Revenue, £30,000. Operating costs, £280,000. Annual loss, £250,000. This is unsustainable. 1. Closes parts of the house. Upper floors closed. Too expensive to maintain, heat, staff. Some drawing rooms closed. Only the most spectacular rooms remain open. 2. Reduces staff. Gardens become less manicured. Some areas go wild. 3. Defers maintenance. Roof repairs, delayed. Plumbing fixes, delayed. Paint peeling, we'll get to it eventually. Result, Waddesdon slowly decays again. Not abandoned like in WWII, but neglected. By 1980, parts of Waddesdon look shabby. Paint faded, carpets worn, gardens overgrown. Visitors notice. Attendance stagnates. The National Trust considers, should we just close Waddesdon entirely? Then, in 1988, a rescuer appears. 1988, Jacob Rothschild, 4th Baron Rothschild, negotiates a deal with the National Trust. Jacob is James's great-nephew, a direct descendant of the Rothschild line. The deal? National Trust retains ownership. Waddesdon legally belongs to them. Jacob gets a 100-year lease, 1988-2088. Jacob commits to funding restoration and maintenance. National Trust handles legal ownership and oversight. Why does Jacob do this? 1. Family legacy. Waddesdon is Ferdinand's monument. Jacob feels obligated to preserve it. 2. Guilt. The family lost Waddesdon to taxes. Jacob, who inherited Rothschild wealth through other lines, feels he should restore what was lost. 3. Love of art and history. Jacob is a serious art collector himself. He appreciates what Ferdinand created. Jacob commits millions to restoration, and for 36 years, 1988 to 2024, he works to restore Waddesdon. Jacob's restoration strategy? Phase 1, 1988 to 2000, structural repairs. Fix roof, stop leaks. Repair plumbing and electrical. Restore heating system. Make buildings safe for visitors. Cost, £10 million plus. Phase 2, 2000 to 2010, interior restoration. Repaint rooms, restore damaged furniture, replace worn carpets, reinstall art, pieces that had been in storage. Cost, £15 million plus. Phase 3, 2010 to 2024, finishing touches. Restore gardens to original grandeur, add modern visitor facilities, cafe, gift shop, restrooms, create exhibitions, digitize archives. Total spent by Jacob 1988 to 2024, £50 million plus, roughly $200 million in cumulative 2024 dollars. Result, Waddesdon is beautiful again, but it's still incomplete. Why restoration remains incomplete? Problem 1. Some damage is irreversible. Ferdinand's original furniture, pieces owned by Marie Antoinette, suffered damage during World War II and National Trust years. Some pieces were restored, others are lost forever. Modern replicas fill gaps, but they're not authentic. Problem 2. Operating costs still exceed revenue. Annual costs, 2020s, staff, £3 million per year, maintenance, £2 million per year, utilities and grounds, £1.5 million per year, total, £6.5 million, roughly $8 million. Annual revenue, admissions, 150,000 visitors per year times £20, £30 million, gift shop cafe, £1.5 million, events, weddings, corporate, £1 million, total, £5.5 million. Annual shortfall, £1 million. Jacob covers the shortfall personally, but when Jacob dies, who will? Problem 3. Jacob aged. Jacob was born 1936 when he took Waddesdon's lease. 1988, he was 52, energetic, committed. By 2020, Jacob was 84, still involved, but slowing. February 26, 2024, Jacob Rothschild dies, age 87. His son, Nathaniel Rothschild, 5th Baron Rothschild, inherits the lease, but Nathaniel is less interested in Waddesdon than Jacob was. Restoration may stall. Upper floors. Some rooms still closed, too expensive to restore. Gardens, simplified from Ferdinand's original design, too expensive to maintain full French formal gardens. Staff quarters and service areas, unrestored, not visitor-facing, so lower priority. Outbuildings, some still in disrepair. Aviary, partially restored but not to original grandeur. After 36 years of Jacob's work and £50 million spent, Waddesdon is roughly 85 to 90% restored. The final 10 to 15% may never happen. For a century, 1815 to 1914, the Rothschilds were the most powerful financial dynasty in history. By 1960, their empire was shattered. Why? The Rothschilds survived wars, revolutions, economic crashes. They couldn't survive tax policy. How inheritance taxes destroyed the fortune. Generation 1, Mayor Amschel, dies 1812. Fortune, £5 million. Inheritance tax, 0%. Sons inherit, £5 million, 100%. Generation 2, Nathan, dies 1836. Fortune, £10 million. Inheritance tax, 5%. Heirs inherit, £9.5 million, 95%. Generation 3, Lionel, dies 1879. Fortune, £8 million. Inheritance tax, 10%. Heirs inherit, £7.2 million, 90%. Generation 4, Alfred, dies 1918. Fortune, £5 million. Inheritance tax, 40%. Post-World War I increase. Heirs inherit, £3 million, 60%. Generation 5, Lionel Walter, dies 1937. Fortune, £2 million. Inheritance tax, 50%. Heirs inherit, £1 million, 50%. Generation 6, Victor, dies 1945. Fortune, £1.5 million. Inheritance tax, 60%. Heirs inherit, £600,000, 40%. Generation 7, James, dies 1957. Fortune, £4 million. Waddesdon plus art. Inheritance tax, 80%. Heirs inherit, £800,000, 20%. Not enough to keep Waddesdon. Each generation, the government takes more. By the 7th generation, the fortune is gone. This was intentional policy. Governments explicitly designed inheritance taxes to prevent dynastic wealth accumulation. It worked. Reason 2. Wars destroyed the international network. The Rothschilds' power was based on the 5-city network. World War I shattered it. Frankfurt, destroyed by hyperinflation and anti-Semitism. Vienna, crippled by empire's collapse. Naples, branch already closed. Italy unified, Naples lost importance. London and Paris survived but weakened. World War II finished it. Vienna, Nazis seize assets, family flees. Frankfurt, assets seized, family flees. Paris, occupied by Nazis, 1940 through 1944, bank closed. By 1945, only the London branch remains fully functional. The 5 arrows are broken, only one remains. Reason 3. Governments no longer needed Rothschilds' financing. 19th century, governments had few financing options. The Rothschilds were essential. 20th century, multiple alternatives emerged. Central banks, governments can borrow directly from their own central banks. American banks, J.P. Morgan and others. Government bonds sold directly to the public, war bonds, savings bonds. The Rothschilds are no longer indispensable, and without indispensability, they lose power. Reason 4. Anti-Semitism made power dangerous. 19th century, anti-Semitism existed, but the Rothschilds were too powerful to attack directly. 20th century, Nazis explicitly targeted Jews, including wealthy Jews. The Rothschilds had to choose visibility or survival. They chose survival, which meant reducing their profile, selling assets, fleeing countries. Maintaining an international financial empire while being Jewish became impossible in Nazi-dominated Europe. Reason 5. Invisible power became visible and vulnerable. For a century, Rothschild power was invisible. They didn't hold government office, didn't command armies, operated through loans, bonds, networks. Invisible power is hard to attack. But estates like Waddesdon made power visible. A 45-bedroomed château filled with Marie Antoinette's furniture? That's a target. When governments decided to break up large fortunes, visible estates were the first to go. The Rothschilds' monuments became their weakness. Ferdinand spent decades collecting thousands of art objects. Why? Surface answer: he appreciated beauty, culture, history. Deeper answer: objects don't reject you. The psychology of collecting. Ferdinand faced constant rejection. Rejected by aristocracy for being Jewish and nouveau riche. Rejected by love. Evelina died, he never remarried. Rejected by family continuity. No children, no direct heirs. But objects? Objects are loyal. If you pay for an object, it's yours, forever. It doesn't leave, it doesn't judge, it doesn't reject. Marie Antoinette's furniture didn't care that Ferdinand was Jewish. Sèvres porcelain didn't care that he was nouveau riche. Possessing these objects gave Ferdinand what people wouldn't: acceptance. He was saying, I own what French kings owned, therefore I am connected to their legacy. I belong. But objects are cold comfort. Ferdinand died alone, surrounded by thousands of beautiful things. None of them could fill the void left by Evelina. None of them could give him the acceptance he craved. Collecting was Ferdinand's grief made visible. The Rothschilds built power on invisibility. Their strength was operating behind the scenes. Private loans to governments, information networks faster than official channels, international coordination governments couldn't match. This worked for a century. Then governments changed the rules. Progressive taxation made invisible wealth visible. Estate taxes forced disclosure. You must value everything, report everything, pay taxes on everything. Suddenly, the Rothschilds' wealth was public knowledge, and once wealth is visible, governments can tax it. The Rothschilds couldn't hide estates, art collections, investments. Each generation, governments took more. By the 7th generation, the fortune was gone. Could the Rothschilds have prevented this? Some strategies might have helped. 1. Convert to foundations like Rockefeller. Rockefeller put his fortune into tax-exempt foundations. The money remained under family control, but avoided estate taxes. The Rothschilds did this partially, but not enough, not early enough. 2. Liquidate and diversify. Sell estates, art, convert to liquid assets, spread across multiple countries, trusts, entities. But this means abandoning Waddesdon, the very thing Ferdinand built to prove legitimacy. The Rothschilds couldn't bring themselves to do it. 3. Leave Europe entirely. Move to countries with lower taxes, US, Switzerland. Some Rothschilds did flee from Nazis, but moving meant abandoning century-old networks. None of these solutions were perfect. The fundamental problem? 20th century governments decided dynastic wealth was incompatible with democracy, and governments won. 2024. Waddesdon Manor still stands. Tourists visit 150,000 per year. They tour the rooms Ferdinand created. They admire the art he collected. They walk gardens he designed. They are told the story. Baron Ferdinand built this magnificent château in the 1880s. The Rothschild family owned it for 74 years, then donated it to preserve it for the nation. The tour guides don't mention the family didn't donate. They were forced to surrender it because estate taxes would have bankrupted them. Ferdinand built Waddesdon because he was rejected by the aristocracy he tried to join. The Rothschilds controlled governments for a century. Then governments destroyed their dynasty in 2 generations. Waddesdon is presented as triumph. It's actually a monument to defeat. Beauty cannot buy acceptance. Ferdinand built the most beautiful château in Britain, filled it with the finest art. British aristocracy admired it, but never accepted him as one of them. Invisible power cannot survive visibility. Rothschild financial power was invisible and survived a century. Waddesdon made power visible and became the instrument of its destruction. Estate taxes took Waddesdon because it was visible, valuable, and vulnerable. Governments always win. For a century, the Rothschilds seemed invincible, wealthier than nations, more connected than governments. Governments changed tax laws. Within 2 generations, the empire collapsed. Objects cannot replace people. Ferdinand collected obsessively, thousands of objects, decades of effort. It couldn't fill the void left by Evelina, couldn't give him acceptance, couldn't give him heirs. He died alone, surrounded by beauty that meant nothing without someone to share it with. The incomplete restoration. Jacob Rothschild spent 36 years and £50 million restoring Waddesdon. It's 85 to 90% complete. It will probably never be 100%. Why? Because no one can recreate what Ferdinand built. Ferdinand had unlimited money in his era, unlimited time, unlimited obsession. Jacob had limits. His son has less commitment. Eventually, the restoration will stop. Waddesdon will remain frozen, beautiful but incomplete, just like Ferdinand's life, just like the Rothschild Empire, forever unfinished. If you were moved by this story of invisible empires, obsessive collecting, and the palaces that outlive the power that built them, please like and subscribe. These investigations take months of research. Your support makes them possible. Tell me in the comments, should governments break up dynastic wealth, or do we lose something when we destroy families like the Rothschilds? The Morgan Dynasty, how J.P. Morgan's empire was broken by Glass-Steagall. Rockefeller's strategy, how he survived when Rothschilds didn't. The Astor decline, Manhattan real estate empire destroyed by taxes. Hearst Castle abandoned, another monument newspaper magnate couldn't finish. These aren't just buildings, they're monuments to power that governments decided to destroy. Every empire falls. Every dynasty ends. The Rothschilds built invisible power that controlled Europe. Governments made it visible, then taxed it to death. Waddesdon stands as proof. No family, no matter how wealthy, is stronger than a government determined to take it all. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next investigation.